cigarettes. And cowboy killers at that. I know she had her mom, but she smoked cigarettes? Yo.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard's life story has been one of survival, resilience, and transformation, capturing public attention since the shocking revelation of her mother's abuse and the crime that ultimately led to her incarceration. However, recent developments have sparked serious concerns, with many questioning whether she is grappling with habits that could have significant and lasting consequences, not only for herself, but also for those closest to her.
During her pregnancy, well, new evidence came out and suggests she just may have. A photo surfaced showing Gypsy Rose at a Post Malone concert with a pack of CIG in her purse. This combined with
a newly surfaced photograph from Gypsy's night out at a Post Malone concert has ignited a firestorm of discussion across social media platforms. In the image, she can be seen holding a transparent handbag, and inside, a pack of cigarettes is clearly visible. While at first glance, this might not seem particularly alarming, it is the context surrounding this sighting that has intensified public scrutiny. This is not an isolated incident, but appears to be part of an ongoing pattern, one that has raised serious concerns about her well-being and decision-making, especially given her recent transition into motherhood.
April, showing her partaking approximately 1 month before the alleged conception date during her show, and allegedly, possibly on this live stream, which was during her pregnancy.
What makes this situation even more troubling is the fact that Gypsy was previously caught smoking while she was pregnant. Now, with a newborn at home, the knowledge that she continues to engage in this habit has sparked widespread anxiety among her followers and critics alike.
I'm going to read you something that a nurse posted on a discussion board. Now, this was after Gypsy gave birth to her baby, who was born a month earlier than the announced due date, weighing about 5 pounds something ounces. This is what Gypsy's...
People are questioning whether she fully grasps the potential harm her actions could pose to her child, as newborns are incredibly vulnerable to secondhand smoke exposure. Their delicate, still developing lungs make them highly susceptible to a variety of respiratory issues, including pneumonia, bronchitis, asthma, and other long-term breathing complications. Even brief exposure to cigarette smoke can trigger distressing symptoms such as wheezing, shortness of breath, and difficulty inhaling properly.
Sad. I'm a nurse, and I will say this. Since Gypsy required shots to help develop her baby's lungs, betamethasone, I do believe is the shot, it leads me to believe that she was in carcinogenic substance during pregnancy, not to mention the low birth weight.
The potential consequences of prolonged exposure are even more alarming, as research has linked secondhand smoke to chronic lung diseases that can persist well into adulthood. One particularly unsettling moment has resurfaced from a past live stream where Gypsy casually made a joke about her baby's breathing sounds. While she may have intended for it to be lighthearted, many are now wondering if those noises were actually indicative of an underlying health concern possibly linked to smoke exposure either before or after birth.
Arrival also points to this as well. This explains why she's been covering up the details of her induction date and saying everything was quote-unquote normal. Partaking in this has a copious amount of negative effects on a baby.
The medical risks associated with maternal smoking are well documented, and babies born to mothers who smoke during pregnancy face significantly higher chances of developing serious complications. Scientific studies have shown that exposure to nicotine and other harmful chemicals in cigarette smoke can cause structural changes in a developing baby's lungs, reducing overall lung capacity and predisposing the child to lifelong respiratory issues. The effects may not be immediately obvious, but can manifest over time in the form of decreased immune function, chronic allergies, asthma, and difficulty breathing.
Such as placenta damage, brain, heart, and lung growth restriction, increased risk of preterm labor, low birth weight, lung damage, infant asthma, and even
Beyond respiratory problems, another major fear is the increased risk of sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. Researchers have found that chemicals found in tobacco smoke can interfere with an infant's natural respiratory patterns, increasing the chances of fatal complications. The dangers do not end with direct smoking, either third-hand smoke.
On a very recent live, Gypsy was joking and laughing about a sound Aurora makes. It's a snorting sound. Now, this is not normal and points to respiratory issues,
which lingers on clothing, furniture, and in household air, can also expose newborns to toxic substances, further heightening the risk. What has further fueled speculation is the report that Gypsy's newborn daughter required medical intervention to assist with lung development after birth. According to sources,
it can be a symptom of partaking during pregnancy or the microdeletion 1q21.1. It's not a joking matter. In conjunction with the other symptoms we know of, people are concerned that GRB thinks it's just a joke.
The baby was born weighing only 5 pounds and arrived prematurely at 36 weeks, falling short of the full-term 40 weeks. Medical experts warn that smoking during pregnancy is a well-established risk factor for premature births and low birth weight. These conditions alone can lead to an array of complications, including weakened immune systems, developmental delays, and an increased susceptibility to respiratory infections.
Serious, and she won't reach out for medical attention. I think part of it is GRB is in denial. Okay, her baby had a 50% chance of getting the 1q21.1. She is in denial.
The risks associated with prenatal exposure to tobacco are not limited to physical health alone. Studies suggest that children born to mothers who smoked while pregnant are more likely to face long-term cognitive and developmental challenges.
And also, it might point out and give some weight to how Dee sought out medical treatment and got Gypsy the correct diagnosis and the medical treatment that she required to be healthy, to be the healthy woman she is today.
Research has linked prenatal nicotine exposure to a higher likelihood of attention deficit disorders, learning disabilities, and behavioral issues, which can impact a child's ability to focus, retain information, and perform academically as they grow older. The potential for these lifelong effects is what has left so many people deeply concerned about Gypsy's continued smoking. As social media debates rage on, people are asking an urgent question: will Gypsy recognize the possible harm and take decisive steps to change?
Due January 22nd. Why don't we live together? Because she's on parole. She can't live with me technically. She visits a lot.
Or will her habit continue, putting her child's health at further risk? For those who have followed Gypsy's story closely, her past experiences with substance use are well known. Long before her rise to infamy, she had already been exposed to the dangers of addiction, largely due to the extreme medical abuse inflicted upon her by her mother, Dee Blanchard. As a child, Gypsy was subjected to unnecessary medical treatments.
During her pregnancy. Well, new evidence came out and suggests she just may have. A photo surfaced showing Gypsy Rose at a Post Malone concert with a pack of CIG in her purse. This combined with a photo taken in April showing her part,
one of which involved the surgical removal of her salivary glands after her mother falsely claimed she suffered from excessive drooling, a symptom often associated with cerebral palsy. This procedure left Gypsy in chronic pain, and although she was initially prescribed painkillers to manage her discomfort, the relief was short-lived. When her prescribed medication ran out, she unknowingly began a dangerous journey into addiction by secretly taking her mother's hidden stash of Vicodin.
Approximately 1 month before the alleged conception date, during her show, and allegedly, possibly on this live stream, which was during her pregnancy.
By the age of 16, she had already developed a dependency, consuming the pills without fully understanding the long-term risks. Over time, her tolerance increased, leading her to take higher doses to achieve the same numbing effect. Even under Dee's obsessive control, Gypsy found ways to access these medications, and her addiction continued to spiral in secret.
Painkillers. How serious was this addiction?
You know, this is really hard to talk about because it took me down a really dark path. But I felt like it was my only way to cope for a time.
The night her mother was murdered, Gypsy later admitted that she was high, describing how the drugs left her feeling emotionally detached from the events unfolding around her. Her struggles did not end when she was imprisoned. Behind bars, Gypsy was introduced to other substances and admitted that she was pressured into smoking regularly for about a year. She also experimented with Suboxone, a medication commonly used to treat opioid addiction. Despite the restrictive environment of prison, access to substances remained possible, and she even borrowed money from her stepmother to pay off drug debts.
I'm doing my best to keep my calm. I have a very short fuse right now, but I'm doing the best I can. Thankfully, I'm in therapy, and I talk to my therapist about the things that bother me, and I'm able to get really good insight. So my emotions are...
Although Gypsy has publicly stated that she overcame her addiction, questions remain about whether she ever truly recovered. Rehabilitation is not simply about willpower. It requires structured medical support, therapy, and often long-term treatment programs to ensure lasting sobriety. Without undergoing formal addiction recovery programs, some believe her period of sobriety may have been more of a temporary break rather than a complete transformation. With her smoking habits now under scrutiny,
beyond a 10, they're like a 12 and above. And so my perception of different stuff that's going on around me is heightened by emotion. So it's something that
Many are speculating whether this is simply a bad habit or a sign of a deeper, unresolved struggle. If Gypsy never received proper treatment for her addiction, is it possible that she is still battling the same cravings she developed as a teenager? And if so, how might this impact her life moving forward, especially as she navigates the responsibilities of motherhood? Could Gypsy's recent behavior be indicative of a lingering struggle with addiction, one she never fully escaped from? Despite her release from prison marking a fresh start, her surroundings and influences may still be playing a crucial role in shaping her decisions.
Stick to facts and not feelings on. Thank you, Mindy, for the fireworks. I have to stick to facts and what I know instead of my emotions, because if I let my emotions lead the way, my perception gets changed, and that just makes for a whole mess.
Following her release, Gypsy moved in with her stepmother, Kristy, a figure who has also been rumored to have a complicated history with substances. While these claims remain unconfirmed, reports have surfaced suggesting that Kristy allegedly has access to unprescribed medication, supposedly obtained through a cousin. If there is any truth to these allegations, then Gypsy may find herself in an environment that does not foster recovery, but instead enables old habits. Overcoming addiction is an uphill battle, and being surrounded by someone who may also have a dependency on substances only complicates that struggle. The temptation is ever present. When the people closest to you engage in certain behaviors, they can easily become normalized, making it much harder to resist falling back into old patterns. If Kristy truly does have access to unprescribed medication, then Gypsy is living in a household where the risk of exposure to substance use is significantly higher.
Cigarettes. And cowboy killers at that. I know she had her mom, but she smoked cigarettes? Yo.
This raises serious concerns about her ability to maintain control over her own actions and prioritize her long-term well-being. It's worth noting that Gypsy has been vocal in her criticism of her ex-husband, Ryan Anderson, particularly regarding his hoarding tendencies. She previously described how challenging it was to live in a chaotic and cluttered environment, expressing frustration over his unwillingness or inability to change. But could it be that Gypsy is also wrestling with an internal battle of her own?
During her pregnancy. Well, new evidence came out and suggests she just may have. A photo surfaced showing Gypsy Rose at a Post Malone concert with a pack of CIG in her purse. This combined with
one that, in some ways, may be just as consuming, if not even more destructive. Addiction manifests in various ways. While hoarding is often linked to emotional distress and unresolved trauma, substance use disorder presents a different kind of danger, one that not only affects the individual, but also those around them. If Gypsy continues to engage in smoking, particularly in an environment where others may not prioritize sobriety, breaking free from these cycles of dependency could prove even more difficult. But beyond her own struggles, the most pressing concern is how this may impact her child.
In April, showing her partaking approximately 1 month before the alleged conception date during her show, and allegedly, possibly on this live stream, which was during her pregnancy.
A newborn is entirely dependent on their parent to provide a stable, safe, and nurturing environment. If Gypsy remains in a setting where substance use, whether cigarettes, unprescribed medication, or any other potentially harmful habit is present, what kind of environment is she creating for her daughter? Research has consistently shown that children raised in households where substance use is prevalent are at a higher risk of developing similar struggles later in life. Not only that, but they are also more likely to experience emotional instability, neglect, or exposure to behaviors that can negatively influence their development.
I'm going to read something that a nurse posted on a discussion board. Now, this was after Gypsy gave birth to her baby, who was born a month earlier than the announced due date, weighing about 5 pounds something ounces. This is what Gypsy's.
The cycle of addiction is often generational, and without intervention, these patterns can continue to repeat themselves. Gypsy has proven time and time again that she possesses remarkable resilience. She is a survivor. But surviving is not the same as healing. If she truly wants to build a healthier and more secure future for both herself and her child, she must take a hard look at the people she surrounds herself with and make some incredibly difficult decisions. Is she willing to step away from an environment that could be enabling her struggles? Or will she continue exposing both herself and her daughter to potential harm? The choices she makes now will not only shape her own future, but will directly impact the well-being of her child. Substance use is never just an individual issue. It ripples outward, affecting everyone in its path.
Sad. I'm a nurse, and I will say this. Since Gypsy required shots to help develop her baby's lungs, betamethasone, I do believe is the shot, it leads me to believe that she was in carcinogenic substance during pregnancy, not to mention the low birth weight.
Right now, Gypsy's baby girl depends on her completely. If smoking or any other form of substance use continues, the long-term health risks for her daughter could be severe. The ultimate question remains: does Gypsy fully recognize the potential consequences of her actions? And if she does, is she willing to take the necessary steps to change? Many believe that professional support, whether in the form of therapy, rehabilitation, or a structured recovery program, is crucial. Because while Gypsy has survived unimaginable hardships, overcoming addiction is not a battle that should be fought alone. This situation is about more than just Gypsy. It's about the future she wants to create for her daughter. If she remains on this path, the risks may extend far beyond her own well-being and could have lasting effects on her child as well. So, what do you think? Has Gypsy fallen back into old habits? Could her current environment be worsening the situation? And most importantly, what needs to happen next to ensure the safety and well-being of her daughter? Let's discuss in the comments. Your thoughts matter.